We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
And now, Cagesiders.
Michael Price in here, already doing his thing on the board, frantically working the buttons on his board.
But he was on time.
He was on time.
Yes.
You know,
you got to hand that to him.
He's checking his phone every once in a while. Plenty
With a new
Fish.com. He's on there. He's got the Mike Tyson haircut from 1988. That's okay. We like it. It strikes fear in opponents' hearts. And speaking of striking fear in opponents' hearts, we have one of the toughest female fighters to ever step in the cage. One of my absolute favorites. Liz Carmouche is on the line with us. Liz, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Oh, doing wonderful in this beautiful city of Las Vegas. Now, Liz, we know you have a new sponsorship. You're a new, you got some new things going on. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But for our audience members who may not know who you are, a little background. You know, Liz was one of the first female fights in UFC, opposite of some lady named Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, somebody.
And one of the toughest, like I said, one of the toughest opponents, warriors ever to step in the cage. She's still doing her thing. And Mike, you'll like this. I know you're a military vet. She's a military vet as
Thank
well.
you for serving, Liz.
Oh, thank you.
Now, for those who may not know, you served, you were in the Marines for a few years. How did you and why did you make that transition from active military service to what you're doing now in the cage?
I had originally gone into the Marine Corps with the intent of, if I love it, great. If I don't, well, I'm at least going to serve honorably, do my 5 years, get out, and figure out what I'm going to do with there. I thought at the time, like, I'll get my college degree in there, I'll get out, and I'll be an English teacher. And, what more is going to speak to kids than somebody that can actually write while also being able to blow things up and shoot things? Kids are going to listen to that, right? Like, you sound pretty badass if you can do all that. So it's kind of my thought going into it. And once I was in, I just wasn't able to. My command didn't allow me to get the college education I wanted. So Plan A was completely out. And a few people I worked with suggested that I check out MMA. It'd be a good fit. And when I looked into the sport, I thought it was the most ridiculous thing ever. I couldn't believe that people actually paid to watch people subject themselves to that, and that anyone would go in there. I didn't see the talent in it. I thought it was just street fighters getting paid to do it on TV, and I was appalled. And not soon after, I was like, well, you know what? There's enough people saying to check it out, and they're really into it. Let me do a little more education and see what this is about. So I did some research, looked over the BJ Penn book, and I was like, wow, I really like the workouts and the diet. At least I'll get started with that. And when I was actually able to get out of the Marine Corps and find a gym, I connected with Manolo and Team Hurricane Awesome and realized that I had been missing out, and I really hadn't seen MMA the way it was meant to be. And I fell in love with it that first week training.
Now, from those humble beginnings, back when most of us probably even first recognized MMA or even started, like my brother did, he used to sneak me those videos from Blockbuster, the VHS tapes, so we could watch it and everything else. Did you ever imagine that this sport that you're like, okay, what the hell is this, would become this global, international, recognized sport from those beginnings?
Yes and no. After doing the research, I realized how large MMA was, particularly the UFC as a fight organization. And at the time, I thought that, I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to fight Chris Cyborg. I'm a 145er. I'll be the first one to beat her. And then after that, we'll be in the UFC. And so I definitely had hopes and dreams for that, but I was not voicing them out loud, particularly after I met Cyborg and realized how tiny I was in comparison to her. But I really was like, you know what? Some dreams are just not meant to be said out loud. Let me just keep these to myself. So at the time, I kind of had hopes that it would become what it is today. I certainly didn't see it happening the way it did, not at all.
Well, now, Liz, looking at what you just said right there, you actually had aspirations. You had targets on people coming to it. It wasn't just you hey, let me see if this thing kind of works out for me. You decided, all right, I know I'm pretty good, and this is the direction I'm going?
See, not quite. It wasn't really that I knew I was good at all. I knew I was hard-headed. I knew I could take a beating. I didn't know if I actually had any talent or skill or that I could even learn the sport, but I thought, like, hey, you know what? I hit pretty hard, and I can take a hit. I think I can beat Cyborg. I don't know what it was about me, that aspired to reach that goal and to achieve that. But there was something in me that thought that I had what it took.
Liz, are you from Detroit? No, never. Characteristics of people from Detroit. I hit harder than you.
No, I mean, is that something you find, like, of course, you served in the military, and Mike, you served in the military. Is that something you guys find while in the service? You know what? I can take a punch. Is that a regular thing? I can take some punishment?
Unfortunately, it is kind of something you do learn in the military when you're doing MEP training. I was that person in boot camp who strived to be the best at everything. That's just who I am. I'm always striving. Yeah. Especially in athleticism, it always has to be something with sports where I'm trying to rise to the next level. And in boot camp, we went through the thing in McMep, and then they did body hardening. I'm like, all right, I'll throw down with the drill instructor. I don't care. And I was willing to fight a drill instructor in the middle of boot camp at whatever risk would come with that. So I think that's really when it started, where I knew that, if I can fight these people, then I can fight anybody.
And that's it. We're talking to Liz Carmouche, I guess, continued MMA fighter out here.
Right.
Liz, just looking at what you're doing right now, did you just think that, man, I think I can keep this thing going for a long time, or was it something that you were kind of going to get in and then maybe get out and then, like you said, go on to further, be a teacher or be a trainer?
I definitely thought in the beginning this would be something I would be doing for a long time. I thought that because all the fighters that I knew that were big names, they had been doing it for 10 plus years, 8 years, more than that. And the biggest names that I knew, they were doing it for 20 years. They had been involved in the sport since the beginning. So I thought it was something that I could also do for that long if I had the skill to do it.
No, right. Now, kind of circling back, you competed in the first ever women's MMA match in UFC history opposite Ronda Rousey, UFC 157. It's crazy to think about at the time you got in to where we are now that, there were no females in UFC. So how can you walk us through that feeling, those emotions, being a part of that first women's match in there and, having such a bright spotlight put on you, so early in your career?
I went into that definitely feeling as though I didn't deserve to be the person going in there making history. There are so many other fighters. Ronda had achieved the belt while she was in Strikeforce. And so many other women had been pioneers in the sport that I looked up to, that I had watched fighting, that had certainly put in a lot more work and time to deserve that. So going into it, I'm like, man, I don't understand why I'm that person. There's so many other people. But at the end of the day, when everybody else was asked, they said, no, I'm the only person that didn't turn it down. So I guess it says something in that. So let me give this everything that I have, see where this has to go, if I have what it takes. And maybe all the dreams that I have and quietly tucked away will come true.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're hard-headed. Why would you turn it down? Well, you're still fighting in the UFC, still doing your thing. You last fought in December. Any fight plans coming up? Anything we need? We need a break right now. Breaking news.
No, I'm going to do EBI trials, and then hopefully showcase stuff there that'll help show the UFC just how much of anticipation they can build for my next fight, and they can hopefully set something up after that.
EBI, that's the Eddie Bravo invitation, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that the one with the strikes? They can palm strike?
So that's combat jiu-jitsu, and I'm absolutely for combat jiu-jitsu. The one I'm doing is just a normal jiu-jitsu tournament.
Okay, see, I would figure the combat jiu-jitsu would be more up your alley than anything else. I mean, it's basically MMA without the closed fist, Mike. It's
I
crazy.
think that Eddie's not looking to showcase the first knockout in combat jiu-jitsu, so he's going to let it ride and let me do some other stuff first.
I like it. Now, you recently, very recently in January, became spokesperson for Medical Marijuana Incorporated. Number one, how can you walk us through? How does that feel to be the spokesperson for something that is both still a little bit controversial and something that is gaining more steam as far as being accepted?
It feels great. I definitely did not in any way think that I was going to be that person that would help educate people and bring this to light. And it's great being supportive and being a part of something that I know is good for people. I mean, there's plenty of times you're like, hey, I'm not really sure what the ingredients are in this, but it seems pretty good. And this is one of those cases where I can fully stand behind it knowing that it's nothing but good for people.
Now, looking at this relationship that between fighter and company, things like that, what was it about Medical Marijuana Incorporated that kind of drew you to them? Because there's a ton of these companies around, but these guys seem to be leading the way.
Yeah, and it was really two things. It was one, I tried out different brands, and I tried out this product, and it had such great results with it that I wanted to be involved. I just knew that there wasn't a doubt in my mind that even if it was just that I use that product continually, and let some of the other athletes that I know that could use it as well, at the very least, just making sure that we're all on the same page, we're using the same product that's good for us, just because I had so many benefits from it. But then also having met Dan Schmidt that was with Hemp Meds, and having a former vet as well, another Marine that understands, and just he didn't pull any punches. He spoke to me with truth, and a lot of times you can kind of feel like a car salesman trying to sell you a product, and I never felt that way.
Right.
We connected on military terms, both of us being vets, and that having that connection with the company just made it that stronger for me.
Liz, how far away are we, do you think, from using medical marijuana in all the sports, and I guess in the big three, football, baseball, basketball?
I hope within this next year everything will change. I mean, ideally, if it could change right away, that'd be great, but I don't see that happening.
Right.
But already just with USADA taking off their ban list and making some changes federally, I think it's just within the next year we hopefully see it legal across all sports.
Now, do you think, in just your opinion here, I mean, we're seeing these punishments still handed down. Cynthia Calvillo just got a suspension. Of course, the big one with Nick Diaz, he was out for a couple of years, things like that. Do you think the punishment's meeting the crime here, or do you hope that, this changes pretty quick?
No, I definitely don't think the punishment meets the crime, particularly with something that is so beneficial. And it's not like somebody takes CBD and goes out and does any crazy roid rage or anything like that. It's nothing but good. Like, there's nothing that comes negative out of it. So it really blows my mind that you could ban something that can't hurt anybody.
Right.
Because it's the exact opposite. I mean, I've never met more chill people in my entire life. And it's weird, being out here in Vegas where everything changed this year for us, where, it was just medical last year and now it's recreational, within reason. I mean, there's still laws and things like that. So it's not like everyone's going crazy, but I think, well, let me ask you, in your opinion, does it help that the mecca of sports fighting, in Vegas, where the UFC is headquartered, do you think that's going to give it that extra push to kind of legalize it, and maybe MMA becomes the first sport that openly accepts it?
I hope so, but I think oftentimes on a place like Vegas, for it to mainstream things, people almost expect it. Like, it's called the city of sin, so it's the expectations that do
Right.
things that kind of push boundaries.
Yeah.
So it may not be the place to do it. I think another city that can take those steps and make those changes, that'll make a difference.
Hey, see, you got some supporters in the background there. I like it. Now, yeah, I mean, of course, people see it and everything in Vegas. We're a soulless town. Money moves everything. But kind of looking at, I mean, what are some of the benefits of medical marijuana for the body and for athletes in your position?
So there's quite a few benefits. One that I've noticed, and a huge one, is it helps me sleep through the night. Not only helps me go to sleep smoother, but also stay asleep longer. And that was a big thing, and I know that a lot of vets struggle with is just problems with sleep. And the other biggest thing for me as an athlete, as an MMA fighter, is it removes inflammation and pain. Mm-hmm. I mean, on my Mondays are my most intense training days, and I'll do upwards of 8 hours, sometimes more than that, of training.
Jesus Christ.
I have intense training at that. So needless to say, Tuesday mornings I wake up. They're not always the best of mornings. But
I'm sore for you.
I've been using hemp meds. I've noticed a difference. Like, oh, okay, well, that elbow, I hit somebody a little bit harder than I should have with that elbow. My elbow's bruised, and there's no inflammation. There's no pain the next day. And I wake up feeling refreshed. And that wasn't happening before. Tuesdays are usually, I'm like, I really dread this day.
Right.
Life is horrible. My body hates me. Why am I doing this?
Now,
and CBD helps that.
As a fighter who's actively still participating and everything, when USADA comes to your door knocking, looking for samples, things like that, how far out do you need to kind of wing yourself off this, or what's the procedure, knowing that you're an active spokesperson for this stuff that's currently banned?
So CBD isn't banned through USADA. We can use that's the great thing is now we can use it. Before, if I wanted to use it, I had to stop so many weeks before a fight because you're not allowed to test positive.
Right.
But now that's not even an issue. So if I want to use it all day, every day, as much as I need to, I can without that restriction anymore.
Wow, I didn't know that.
There you go.
There you go. You're educating people already. No wonder you should be a teacher whenever you call it quits. Final question before we let you go. We know you're busy and you got 8 hours of training to do every single day. That's crazy to me.
Crazy.
We see your counterpart in Ronda Rousey in WWE doing her thing. First of all, what do you think about it? And do you see yourself maybe one day following in those footsteps?
I was a huge fan of WWE as a kid. I was definitely that child that pulled my sister onto my bed, and then we jumped off the top bunk, hit the roof, and smashed on the floor doing all these crazy moves. But I think as I grew up, I kind of saw exactly what that was, and I don't see myself going into it. But who knows? I mean, anything could change. It'll be like, how fun it would be for my 2-year-old to see me being crazy mom flying off of stuff. I don't think, though, that I'm going to be going that route. I think that I have enough invested into my business and trying to do seminars and traveling for the sport that'll consume most of my time. But for Ronda, I mean, she made history by doing what she did in the UFC, and she has nothing else to prove to anybody. She held the title. She made tons of money. She made a fortune doing it. So at this point, I think if she wants to pursue anything, it's really just icing on the cake for her.
Well, you know what? You made history as well, and but being the first openly lesbian fighter in UFC history, being a father of a lesbian daughter, or I guess it would be a lesbian daughter, looking at scene. But I know it was so hard for her to come out to me, which I found weird because I thought I was just like the coolest dad ever. With your coming out, were your obstacles? Was it the coming out to the military, coming out to your family, coming out to UFC? What was your big? I got to open this door.
The biggest obstacle, I think, was just for myself and the acceptance.
Okay.
I was fortunate that when I realized my preference,
right.
I was in the Marine Corps and I was active duty. It was don't ask, don't tell. So that realization was like, what do I do with this knowledge? I can't do anything. If I do anything, I'm going to get kicked out.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't even know how to approach girls. I don't even know how to begin this process. So I had to wait to really come out until I came out of the Marine Corps.
Okay.
But before that, I did come out to my family. And similar, like you're saying, my mom is a hippie mom. Her sister was openly out, and she was always accepting. She has close friends, and it was never an issue, but it was still, for some reason, difficult. My mom wanted to have grandchildren. She wanted to be happy and these things, and I didn't know that I'd ever be able to give her grandchildren. So I was like, I don't know if I can come out to my mom. I don't want to disappoint her. I want her to just be happy for me. So it was difficult, but when I did it, she's like, yeah, I've just been waiting for you to tell me. We all knew. We just waited for you. I'm like, are you kidding me? All these years, it was so much easier.
Awesome.
And then it was almost, when I got into fighting, it was almost like having to go through all that again and having to re-come out.
Right.
Because I had a whole new team, and I was in an environment that I know was a male-dominated sport, so similar to the Marine Corps. I thought I was doing the same thing where I couldn't come out. But again, I found a great group of people that they're like, yeah, duh, we know exactly. We don't care. The only thing we care about is the effort you put in here at the gym. We don't care what your preference is.
That's it.
That's awesome.
We don't care about who you go to bed with. We just care that you're a great person. And as well, I appreciate everything you've done, from serving us to all the obstacles you overcome, and more importantly, the way that you're continually training people and educating people on things that some people are ignorant to. And I truly appreciate that, and I thank you for joining the show.
And thank you for having me so much.
All right, Liz Carmouche, wonderful interview, man. One of my favorite fighters to watch. Absolutely terrifying in the ring. You're terrifying, and it's surprising that you're so funny. And
that's awesome,
and not terrifying to me on the phone.
Yeah.
So, Liz, thank you so much for your time. We know you're super busy. If people want to follow you online on Instagram, Twitter, how can they get a hold of you?
They can find me on Facebook under Liz Carmouche Official, and Twitter and Instagram, it is I am Liz.
All right.
There you go.
Liz.
That's it. Liz, thank you so much for your time, and we can't wait to talk to you again down the road.